Hey guys, welcome back. This is part two of our group interview where we're talking about unpopular movie opinions. And yeah, we'll pick up where we left off. All right, Felicity, I think we'll move on to one of your unpopular opinions next. What's one that you really want to talk about?
I feel like maybe this is a good one, but I feel like I don't have any suggestions with it, so maybe I'll move on to a different one. I guess I'll say, oh, okay, we'll go into horror aspect. I remember like being a girl on Tumblr in the era of like 2015, 2016, when I feel like there was all this movie discourse, and a big one on there, funny enough, was the Babadook. And so I watched that because I feel like there's so many films that like were suggested to me through Tumblr. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be really good. Like I've heard so many good things. And in my opinion, because I saw Hunter clapping, I don't like it really. I think it's nice looking. I don't know. That's really mostly all I can say for it. I didn't find it scary. I found it weird if that's what they were going for. It's definitely weird, but I really don't care to like figure out what it was even trying to talk about, what it was trying to say. Honestly, like I just like have this thing with like I don't know, the kid annoyed me, I guess. And then like when the mom was yelling at the kid, like what did he say? Like what she say in the car? She's like, why can't you be normal or something like that? I'm like, facts, like shut that kid. But that's my cross to bear. That's my
Why am I just hearing of the Babadook? Is that how you say it?
yeah.
Why am I just hearing of it now? Like it's become so popular like on my feed and like now you're talking about it and like I'm like, do I just need to watch the Babadook? Like
Whoa,
You
whoa,
haven't heard
whoa,
of
whoa,
the
wait,
Babadook?
pause. Cassidy, you've never seen The Babadook?
no, I'm like I've never heard of this film besides for the last month. I know, I know. I know. I don't know why.
That's so funny. You should watch it. I mean, it's definitely like worth the watch. It's good in some ways, but I just never need to see it again. I literally watched it twice to try to like fix my brain, and I just couldn't. I don't know. Hunter, you seem to really like it with your animations.
Oh,
So
I don't think it's like the best movie or whatever. I just think the lore behind it is literally so fucking funny that it's like become a bit or it's become like a meme of a movie. And I love that about the movie. And then there was this whole discourse, like Twitter, Tumblr era when it was like really big where they were like, the Babadook is a gay man.
the Babadook is a queer icon. Yes, I
And
remember that.
that just like it was so funny to me that like me and my friend group would like always say like we would always talk about the Babadook and I don't know. It's just the lore behind it is so funny.
The lore behind it is so funny.
Not
Yeah,
that,
I just don't care for the film at all.
no, it's
But
not that good of a it's not.
yeah, I don't know. People loved it though. I don't know what it has on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that it really matters, but I'm curious now that I'm thinking about it. What do you feel about it, Cade?
I'm sorry to disagree with you on this, Felicity. I think it's an enjoyable movie. I don't think it's one of the best horror movies ever made, but I think it's still enjoyable. I don't think it's Psycho or Nightmare on Elm Street or Get Out, but I think it's enjoyable. That's the best I can give it. But
Mhm.
you know what, Hunter? Why don't we move on to you next? What's one of your unpopular movie opinions you wanted to bring up next?
Yeah, I guess one of mine is that I think Paul Dano is a really underrated actor and everyone knows that I love him, but but I think he's been in so many films as like a supporting actor and as a supporting character and he almost like steals the show half the time and like in Prisoners or in There Will Be Blood like he has such a range and I just don't think that he's been giving a film that he is like the main actor. You know what I mean? I think that with his whole discography, like I don't know, I just don't think he gets the credit he deserves for his talent. And I know there is a movie that's coming out with like
Dumb Money.
Aileen Woodley. Yeah, like the money, the I don't know, whatever movie that is,
The
where he
GameStop,
yeah.
like, I don't know, what is it called? Like stock market thing.
Yeah, whatever that one is. But like that's like such a rare movie for him to be like the, main talent. I don't
Well,
know.
and it's also like it'll probably be good, but like it's not like I don't know. It's not like being like I mean, I know he was like the Riddler
The Riddler,
or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah. So like that's a good like role, but like that's not the lead, you know? So
Yeah,
like
he's a supporting actor.
yeah.
Well, just to add on to that, Felicity, so when bringing up his performance as the Riddler, what I loved about his performance in that movie was, I mean, yeah, he doesn't have as much screen time as most of the other main actors, but I think no matter what, he still steals the show with however long he's on screen. And I thought his performance was really great in that movie. All right, why don't we move on to Cassidy next? Cassidy, what is another unpopular opinion you wanted to bring up?
Well, I watched Dunkirk in the theaters. I thought it was boring. And I watched Dune the other day here in my room, and I kid you not, my TV's like in front of my face, and I couldn't hold on to anything for the life of me. Like not even the first like 10 seconds. There was like a bunch of droning going on. Like it's just beige screen for 3 hours. I was like, oh my God, it's still going on. Like, what is happening? They're still fighting each other. Like, I just felt like it was the same thing in both films. Like they're just like war. And then I go stop for a little bit and then war. It's just like there's nothing to hold on to anything. Like, I don't know. They're just it was a drag. They're both drag.
Well, let me ask you this, Cassidy. Do you consider them bad movies?
Cinematography wise, no, definitely not. They're gorgeous, like beautiful, but plot wise, terrible. Like I couldn't hold on to anything. So like it like pick your poison. I don't know.
Well, talking about Dunkirk specifically, so that's another movie by Christopher Nolan, obviously. And I remember going to see it in the theater and I did enjoy it, but one of the things that I kept hearing was people said that they thought it was Chris Nolan's best movie yet, which I mean, I still did enjoy the movie, but I don't agree with that. I think his best movie is still, The Dark Knight. That's probably still his best movie of all time. But yeah, I can see why you would think Dune and Dunkirk can be drags. I think they're movies that are, despite how great they are to some people, they're obviously movies that are not for everybody.
Yeah, well, Dunkirk has like no like barely any dialogue. I don't know. I saw it in theaters as well, and I'll be the first to admit I went and saw it because of Harry Styles, but it had like barely any dialogue, which was really interesting to see because I felt like I'd never seen a film that at that point in my life that had such a lack of dialogue. And knowing Cassidy, that does not sound like her vibe at all. Like she needs no offense. I mean, this isn't offensive at all, but she needs something to capture her like attention for sure. And I feel like that one is like I would never tell you to watch that. Like if there was a movie that you would tell me, like be like, hey, what should I watch? I'd be like, that's the movie number one movie you shouldn't watch because you would hate it. But I've also heard the same thing about Dune. Like it's just
Well, I just like can't focus.
yeah, it's hard. Those are like two films that are really hard to focus on. Like you have to like sit down and like and I've never seen Dune, but I've heard that thing about it. So it's really I'm definitely not surprised that you weren't into them.
Chloe, why don't we move on to you next? What is one of your unpopular opinions that you wanted to bring up?
Um, I don't know again how well I'm sticking to the unpopular thing, but a lot of people are like coming out saying that they love What We Do in the Shadows, the show. And I always ask, have you seen the movie? And they don't even know that the movie exists, which I think is so funny because the movie's so good. So I guess my unpopular opinion is watch the movie. It's so good. Has anyone else seen it? Granted, I've never seen the show.
See, it's so funny because I love the show and I've never seen the movie. Because
Really?
I'm pretty sure we had this conversation recently. I literally was Nadja for Halloween, the character in the
Oh,
TV show.
nice.
Yeah, I don't know if she's in the movie at all, but I
Can, well, to be fair, I think I only really know about the film because I was in New Zealand, like the city where they filmed it, and Tim
Mhm.
worked on it. So he was like, you have to see this movie. And then when I came back, the show, I guess, was like, I don't know. I don't know
so popular.
how quickly those two, yeah, like hit up against each other. But yeah, the movie's so good. It's honestly such a genius approach to making a movie. Like Taika's so good in that. They all are.
Well, I love that like reality television type film. Like it's a documentary on like vampires, werewolves, and stuff. And so it's just I don't know. I find it so funny because You could look at like True Blood or something where they like try to have that sort of like human interaction where it's like human rights for or not human rights, civilian rights for like vampires and stuff like that in that show. And then you'll take like this like, reality TV show documentary type vibe with what we do in the shadows, and I think it's so funny. I don't know. I love
Yeah.
it. It's one of my favorite shows for sure.
I want to
so.
watch the show. I want to.
And I will watch the movie. So we'll do a little trade off.
Oh yeah.
What's it on? What is the show
Hulu?
on? Hulu?
Yeah, it was on FX or it's on FX, but they put it onto Hulu.
Copy.
Yeah.
All right, so my next unpopular opinion has to do with The Shining from 1980. Okay, so The Shining is often regarded as one of the best horror movies ever made. And I understand why. I think it's a great movie, but it's never been one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I think that when I was younger, I did enjoy it a lot more, but as I've sort of gotten older, I think that I've kind of looked back at it and I think, this just doesn't really hold up for me as much as it did before. And this relates back to what we were talking about earlier. So I think the movie looks fantastic. It's aesthetically beautiful, but for me, when I watch it, I think the concept is great, but I think the plot takes a little too long to pick up and really get moving, especially during the first half. Because usually when I rewatch it, when I'm sitting there during the first hour or longer, I just think, okay, can we please get things moving? Also, I don't really care too much about the characters in the film. I liked the character of Danny Torrance, the kid, but although the performances are great, I'm not a big fan of Jack Torrance or his wife Wendy. I just wasn't a huge fan of them as characters, but that's just me. What's your opinion on the film?
I agree. I don't think it's the best horror movie. It's fine. Whatever. It's classic, sure. I agree. It's whatever.
Yeah, I feel like it's actually funny because it is one of those like films that everybody knows, but a lot of my friends have never seen it either. And I think I don't even think I've fully seen it. Like maybe I watched it as a kid, but like way too young to remember all of it, Like I definitely remember some parts of it, but a lot of it had to be explained to me as an adult because I know that like Doctor Sleep sequel came out, and when I like heard about that one and everything that happened to that one, I was like, what? Like I was just so confused. Like, and it makes so much sense when you hear the whole thing, but like, yeah, I don't know. I also didn't find the appeal. It's beautiful, 100% gorgeous, and it'll always be iconic. But yeah, I think it's in the same realm as Citizen Kane. It's like it's not the best.
And it's actually one of the adaptations of Stephen King's work that he actually dislikes and that he's pretty much known for disliking. In fact, his description of the movie was that he said the movie is like a beautiful Cadillac with no engine.
You're like, yeah, sure, that makes sense, I guess.
But yeah, why don't we move on to Felicity next? Felicity, what's another unpopular opinion you wanted to bring up?
This one is interesting because I would say the majority of us here, the girls, we all haven't seen a lot of like the classic films. Like we were talking like Fight Club, Pulp Fiction. I don't know some other ones that we could list that I've just never seen. Some of us have, but some of us haven't. I would say some of the reasons why I've never seen them is because like all these so-called classics are like ruined for people. And maybe it's based off of social media, to be honest. Like growing up in a time, like I had like everything ruined for me. Like I had The Shining ruined for me. I had Fight Club ruined for me. Like I know the plot twist. Like so it's like, yeah, sure I can go watch it, but I already know what the thing is, and Matrix, all those things. Like I've heard Pulp Fiction, like I've heard everything, Reservoir Dogs. Like I know what's gonna happen in them, and I've never seen them or fully seen them at least. And so I just think like either social media or like people who love them so much have like sort of ruined them because like it's become so like popularized that like why would I want to see it when I know what it's going to be. And so I think that sort of thing, and then aligned with that is like people hating the mainstream has become like a frustration because I know like for part of my life I disliked things that were really mainstream because it was like the bandwagon trend. But there are still some people on that train and they just like make it awful for other people to like sort of enjoy these sort of things that are like, really well known, like Pulp Fiction. Like we kind of make fun of like guys who are like, oh, Pulp Fiction is my favorite movie, and we'll kind of like be like, haha, oh, of course he loves Pulp Fiction, like he's a manipulative person, I don't know. I feel like that's such a trope. And so it's kind of like given this bad taste in your mouth to one want to watch classics. So I think that's kind of why I have lingered off of some classics that I should probably have seen by now. Yeah, I know it's a lengthy one there. Deep rooted.
No.
I feel like you hit home, like literally with the reasoning why we haven't watched so many of these like classic films, you know what I mean? And then there's just such like a outpour of movies. Like there's so many movies now that it's like, how can I don't know, it's a little daunting watching movies because it's like, how will I ever get through all of these movies? So then that's where I feel like rom-coms and like reality TV come back for me, and that's why I've seen so many more of those, because like I don't need to be fully invested, whereas like if I feel like if I'm watching like Pulp Fiction or like The Godfather, like I have to be fully invested watching these movies, and it's not just like something I can throw on while like I clean my room or something. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you really explained it well, Fee.
I agree.
You agree that you explained it well?
Yeah, I definitely explained it really well. No, I agree that I have to like sit down and watch it, and I think I have lost brain cells in the last 10 years and lack the ability to sometimes sit unless I am forced into a movie theater. Not forced. I like the movie theater, but that's the only way you'll get me to not be on my phone while I'm watching something, to be honest.
All right, I think we'll move on to Hunter next. So, Hunter, what is another unpopular movie opinion you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I feel like this is like not super unpopular, but I do think that like CGI is kind of killing filmmaking. I do like respect it. I know that it's an art and it takes a lot of time and whatever, but I think that there's something to be said about practicals and, doing things live on set. And I don't know, maybe Cass, you can speak to this, but I think it's so much more fun for the art department. I think it's so much more like interesting to see. I just feel like it's like more tangible to me. I think CGI just kind of like, it really just takes me out of it. And I don't know like what specifically about it I just don't really vibe with, but I think there's like such an art to the art department that is just being lost with like green screen.
Yes. It's like not I don't know if this is the correct term, but it's like when you CGI is like not tangible, like having things that are like in front of you that how do I put this into words? When you thrift something, it's been owned by like multiple people. Like when you have a room full of like thrifted items or like multiple furniture and decor, it's like has a story in itself. So the entire set has like its own presence. And so removing everything from that room, just like whatever was holding in those pieces and the decor and like what's like whatever work it took to put those up, it's just completely removed. So CGI takes away like the human part of what we like the art department does, I would say.
Yeah, I like that. The human part. I like that. That's like a good way to put it.
And I think, Felicity, that might actually relate to one of your unpopular opinions, just to go back to that because of how you feel about the Avatar movies.
Yes.
Do you want to come back to that later?
We can, yeah.
Okay. Cassidy, why don't we move on to you next? What is one of your unpopular opinions?
Okay. Well, I guess I could say that like animated or like stop motion films are very underrated, and I think they're not acknowledged for the amount of work it takes to make an animated or anything hand drawn, especially like to have it a feature. It's insane. So I just think there's so much craft that goes into that, and it goes overlooked because it's so well done usually. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of unfortunate that like they're not more popular, but that's just like an audience like kind of thing.
You have a favorite animated movie of all time?
Isle of Dogs is I've seen it like 15 times. It's so good. I love it. Everything about it.
It is so good.
I like the Tim Burton like esque one. What is it like Corpse Bride and ones like those? I love that.
So they're like beautiful. The art and like how much the costume design. I'm like,
It's gorgeous.
Felicity, should we move on to you next? Do you have another unpopular movie opinion you want to talk about?
Well, I guess I'll just like because we said we'd get back to it, I'll just reiterate the Avatar thing. Like I understand how like nice it is and how long it takes to craft something like that and the work that goes into that. But in some sense, to what Cassie said about like animation and like the hard work that goes into it, like that's definitely a film that like gets praised for that for its CGI and like all the hard work that went into it. But I've always found it so boring. It's so long. No movie needs to be that long. Like I remember there was a class like in college for like slow cinema and those films were very long. I bet there's really great films in that class, but I would put this one in that and I would say this is terrible. It's just so long and I mean it's probably a good story. I've never seen the second one, but I saw the first one probably far too young to appreciate it. And now I have this just terribly sour taste in my mouth for that franchise.
Well, just to add on to that, Felicity, I think that one of the complaints that I heard from a lot of people about the second Avatar was that, well, a lot of people said it was visually spectacular, but they thought that the plot wasn't very strong, or that it just kind of felt dragged out, like it was just killing time. And, I think there might be a reason for that because I don't know if you know, but we have 3 more Avatar movies on the way in the future.
How is that even possible? Like, doesn't it take like 10 years for every movie? The man's gonna be dead before the last one comes out.
Well, I think it's because over the last 7 years, they shot the second, third, and fourth movie back to back. So I think that's what it is.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes more sense because I'm like, the characters are gonna be dead, the director's gonna be dead. Like, they can't do all that. But if they filmed it all, then I guess that's fine. I won't see it, but
Well, I think that what it is with the second movie, I think the reason why a lot of people thought the plot wasn't as strong is because, well, originally, according to James Cameron, when he was planning out the sequels, he had originally only wanted to make a second, third, and fourth movie, but it ended up being 5 because apparently he and the writers had assembled too much material for the second one. So he opted to split the second one into 2 movies instead. So maybe that's what it is, because the chapter of the overall story, that chapter at least isn't really completed yet, so that might be what it is.
all I'll say is like people said this like the amount of Twilight films that there were was too many because like you just put in so much filler for like baloney. And I will say the same for whatever's going to come out of the Avatar franchise. I really don't think there is anything that they've written that warrants 5 movies within their universe. I feel like a lot of it probably could be left out, and I don't think they need 5 movies. I mean, I'll hear other people talk about it, but I'm not going to put my own life through that.
I understand.
But good for them.
I think the second one was better than the first one.
Oh wow, what a statement.
I think. Well, I don't know. I think it was better than the first one. Is that unpopular?
I don't know. I'll never see it.
Maybe it's because I haven't watched the first one in a while, but I don't think the second one was like that bad. Like watching it, I was like, okay. I always think that like the technical stuff that goes on behind the scenes is like so much more fascinating like than the actual movie because they had to like figure out how to film like underwater. I don't know. I think the technical aspect of Avatar too is like super interesting to me. But I have no real like opinions on Avatar. It's kind of like really cool for what it is and it's really beautiful, but also plot and substance is not there.
I understand. All right, well, Cassidy, do you want to go next? Do you have any last unpopular opinions you wanted to bring up?
yeah, I don't think I do, honestly. That last one was like, I really had to find that one somewhere. So, I'm sorry, I don't have any more.
That's okay. What about you, Hunter? Do you have any more?
The only one I was gonna say is I don't think comedy movies are like that funny. I think the only one that I've seen that has made me like because when I think of a comedy movie, I think of I'm cackling, I'm rolling on the ground, like I'm having a good time, like I'm, and the only thing I've seen recently is Bottoms. And that literally like cackling in the movie theater, like I can't breathe, like I'm like whatever.
We were flailing. We were like flailing around in the movie theater.
Like
Oh, I
giddy.
want to see that.
It's
So fucking
so funny. So funny.
And I don't know, maybe it's because like a lot of like the comedy movies like with Adam Sandler, like I like them. I'm just like not cackling and like, laughing out loud, which is what I think a comedy movie should be making me do. I like them, but they're just like not as funny as I would like them to be. And maybe that's like because the sense of humor isn't, I'm not the target audience for it, and I know like my parents really like it. So maybe it's just not for me, but that's my stance on that.
I understand.
Literally the best comedy in years. Like it's the first, like I think it's the first thing we'll get for like, I don't know, Gen Z era comedy films. Like, I don't know. It's good. It's so good.
It was just so our sense of humor, and I think maybe that's just why I don't think that comedy movies are like funny, because it's just like our parents, we're watching them and it's like our parents' sense of humor, and it's just like not
what parents think we'd find funny. That's what I call like most comedy films at the moment. Is like boomers writing Gen Z humor, and Bottoms is like the first Gen Z writing Gen Z humor, or like older Gen Z, younger millennial. Like they're on the right cusp. Because like Rachel Sennett and like her friend wrote it and whatnot, and they just put the perfect people in it, and the delivery was amazing. It was so funny. Do you have any last ones you want to share, Kate?
Sure. I think one unpopular opinion that I might want to end with is it actually has to do with Sleepy Hollow from 1999 by Tim Burton. So I rewatched that movie again very recently because it was Halloween season, and I got to tell you, I think it might be Tim Burton's best movie, if not one of his best. And I know people often rank Edward Scissorhands as his best movie, or maybe the original Batman or Big Fish, which, I mean, okay, I get why those are often considered his best, but no, I think that Sleepy Hollow might be my favorite Tim Burton movie. The reason why is because I think it's distinctive to most of his other films. I think it's a lot more, I guess it's more brutal than his most of his other movies. I mean, it's Sweeney Todd is also another brutal film by him, but I also love, again, the aesthetic. I really liked the mystery formula that the film had as well. I really liked the use of the character of the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane. Speaking of which, I think Johnny Depp actually gives a really great performance in the movie as well, along with Christina Ricci. But yeah, every time I watch it, I always think, wow, I think this might be one of the best Tim Burton movies ever made.
So after you sent me your unpopular opinions, I told you I was going to watch this because it was on my list for the Halloween season. And so I like put it at the top, and I was like, I have to watch this one so that I can talk about it with him when we go on this. So I did watch it, and I do love it. It's so good. I definitely suggest it for any spooky season. Like I think it'll be in my like yearly rotation for Halloween time. It was so good. I also love a mystery, and I think the mystery was done really well. Like I felt like they gave me enough clues to where I could kind of almost figure it out at the same time. But I wasn't spoiled for me or anything. I didn't know who was actually, the person that started it all. And at first you think like it really is just like somebody who's a murderer, and then like you get this sort of like mystical aspect of it, which was really interesting. I didn't think it was going to take that turn, to be honest. And the look of it's just amazing. I don't know. It's really good. I agree. And as someone who really does love Big Fish, I think that it's a good like Tim Burton film as well. Like I would say it'll definitely mark a memory in my head. The aesthetics of it, the red blood mixed with like the black and white aesthetic of it all, like it was just very muted in like a way that you can't really capture in real life. So it felt like sort of magical in that weird eerie way. But I loved it. I loved all the actors. I loved the performances. It was so good. That like vibe is like my favorite Halloween sort of movie vibe. So I was really glad that I got to watch it before this conversation. I do really like it. So I agree with you.
All right, guys, I think that's going to be the end of this interview. Thanks so much for listening. Felicity, Hunter, Cassidy, Chloe, thanks so much for being here. I loved having this conversation with you. And yeah, it was great to have you back.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
it was a blast.
Yeah, all right, guys. I think that's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you later. Thanks. Bye.